She's a 3-foot-tall alien assassin, and she is hired to protect me from galactic bounty hunters. Thanks for joining us on this journey through science fiction. Let us know where in the world you're watching from in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, consider subscribing for more content like this. The first thing Rhett Mason noticed was how heavy the winning chip felt in his palm. Not metaphorically, literally. The little black and silver token was heavier than any casino chip should be. Smooth edges, faint humming, and just enough heat radiating through his skin to make him squint. It wasn't the chip he'd bet with either. This one had appeared in his winnings tray after a night of beating smugglers and smug diplomats at grave poker. He slipped it into his coat pocket. The Vega Vault Casino City never slept. Neon signs bled through the artificial dusk, blinking across transparent walls and chrome walkways. The entire orbital station was stacked with gambling floors, hidden speakeasies, mercenary markets, and dens of sins that couldn't be named on polite planets. Rhett didn't care. He'd been off Earth for 6 months, working odd repair gigs on satellite systems, and had planned this night to unwind. Now he was halfway down the spiral lift, sipping a cheap whiskey, when 3 armed men in polished crimson armor appeared on the floor below. One of them pointed right at him. Rhett didn't freeze. He turned casually, dumped his drink in the nearest plant bed, and started walking away. Fast, but not too fast. Behind him, the lift let out a beep as the hunters rerouted it. He'd barely rounded the curve of the promenade before the glass exploded behind him. Shards tore past his shoulder. Tourists screamed. Rhett ran. He ducked under a vendor stall, an alien hawking glowing worms, and sprinted toward the maintenance access behind the slot hall. It was an old habit from the refit jobs he used to do on these platforms. Know your exits, and always carry a stun tool. The bounty hunters came fast, 2 behind, one cutting him off from the right. They weren't amateurs. That meant they were expensive. Rhett vaulted over a game table, ducked a stun blast, and rolled into a side corridor. His heart pounded in his ears. Whoever sent these guys didn't want him taken alive. He slid into a dead end, security access only. The door was sealed. One of the hunters stepped into view, plasma rifle raised. Rhett reached for the chip. Maybe it was valuable, maybe he could. Something green and furious dropped from the ceiling and slammed into the hunter's chest. The man flew backward, crashing into the wall with a sickening crunch. Rhett blinked. The assassin barely reached his waist. Lime green skin, lean limbs, tight black armor laced with silver threads. She looked like a cartoon character drawn by a psychopath, blonde hair and a tight braid. Huge eyes like gold coins narrowed in irritation. She didn't glance at him. She flipped through the air, landed on the second hunter's shoulders, and snapped his helmet sideways with a twist. The man went limp. The third tried to run. She hurled a throwing blade and dropped him in one strike. Then she stood there, arms crossed, breathing steady like she just swatted flies. "Rhett, you picked up an artifact tied to an ancient interstellar warlord's legacy. Sin." He nodded slowly. "You're an idiot," she said. "Come on." She grabbed his arm, tiny hand, iron grip, and yanked him through a side vent he hadn't even noticed. "What who?" "Zira, I'm your bodyguard for now." "Since when?" "Since you stole something half the galaxy wants." "I didn't steal anything." "You picked up an artifact tied to an ancient interstellar warlord's legacy," she snapped. "That chip, not a chip, it's a vault key." Rhett groaned. "Of course it is." They slid down into a maintenance shaft, crawling through pipes and steam. Her movements were precise, efficient. Rhett struggled to keep up without smacking his head. "I thought this place was neutral ground," he said. "It is, but you broke the balance. Warlords and crime syndicates don't kitzer." She shoved a rations bar into his hand and tossed it. They emerged in a dark storage room stacked with drone parts. Zira scanned the hallway with a tiny handheld device before waving him forward. "Do you always drop out of ceilings?" he asked. "Only when my client's too slow to avoid getting shot." Rhett narrowed his eyes. "Did someone hire you to protect me?" "Yes." "Who?" She didn't answer. She shoved a rations bar into his hand and tossed him a canteen. We have 12 hours before the next wave. Rest while you can. You could try using your words like a normal person. I'm not normal. I'm an assassin. No kidding. He sat down, watching her as she checked her weapons. She moved like she weighed nothing, balancing effortlessly on a pipe. Her entire vibe screamed danger, tiny, lethal danger, but there was something else there, something tightly wound, controlled. Why'd you take the job? He asked. Because I was paid. Is that all? She paused for a second. Something flickered in her expression. That's all you need to know. They sat in silence. Rhett leaned his head back, trying to process what just happened. Alien assassins, galactic bounty hunters, and a chip that could apparently topple empires, all because he wanted to win back enough credits to fix his broken shuttle. Zira shifted her stance. Sleep with one eye open. They won't stop coming. Not worried, Rhett said. I've got a 3-foot-tall bodyguard. She smirked just a little. Smarthas. He chuckled. She turned away before he could catch her smile. Rhett woke up to the sound of quiet humming and the scent of burnt circuitry. Zira was crouched on a crate a few feet away, soldering wires on what looked like a modified stealth drone. Her fingers moved with precise rhythm, her gaze sharp, and her braids swayed slightly each time she shifted position. He watched for a second before sitting up. Did I snore? He asked. Like a dying hoverbike. He rubbed his face. Figures, you fix that drone. Maybe we can sneak out of here. Nope, signaled jammers all over the sector. Too risky to fly anything small. Then what's the plan? We walk. He blinked through the casino city. She nodded under it mostly, serve as tunnels. Right, because nothing says low profile, like dragging a wanted man through the underbelly of a lawless orbital station. Zira jumped down from the crate and slung the drone over her shoulder. Stay close. Don't talk to anyone if I say duck, don't ask why, just duck. Noted. They moved fast. Zira led them through narrow corridors, down crumbling ladders, past leaking steam valves and rusted security doors. The Vega Vault's guts weren't as flashy as its surface. No neon lights here, just dim, flickering bulbs and the echo of distant machinery. Rhett kept pace without slowing her down. His engineering background helped him spot which grates would hold their weight, where the pressure pipes had shifted from thermal discharge, and which ventilation shafts were safe to crawl through. It surprised her. She didn't say anything, but he noticed she stopped checking her scanner as often. After an hour of navigating the tunnels, they emerged in a market square tucked between the casino's maintenance decks. The place was packed with aliens, most of them shady. Makeshift stalls sold counterfeit ID chips, black market weapons, and questionable food. Zira pulled up her hood and tossed Rhett a ratty old cloak. Keep your head down, she muttered. They moved through the crowd. A green-scaled vendor tried to sell Rhett a venomous eel. He waved the thing away politely. 2 bounty hunters passed them, but Zira shifted at just the right time to block their view. Smooth. He kept walking, but glanced at her sideways. Is this your life? He asked, running, hiding, never sleeping. No, she said. This is a vacation. He snorted. She smiled briefly, but it vanished fast. They ducked into a food stall that doubled as a safe house. Zira exchanged a few coded words with the vendor, who slid aside a false panel and let them in through the back. Inside, they found a dusty room lit by a single blue bulb. Zira locked the door, scanned the walls for bugs, then finally relaxed. For someone who's just here to protect me, you sure seem like you're running too, Rhett said. She looked at him tired. Protecting you keeps me alive too, she replied. How? She hesitated, then sat on the edge of a crate. I owe a debt, big one. Someone paid it off in exchange for this job. If you die before the contract ends, I'm back on the kill list. That's comforting. Zira shrugged. You're not the worst client I've had. He sat across from her, resting his arms on his knees. You talk like someone who's always ready to disappear. Maybe I am. Ever want more? She tilted her head. Like what? A home with a view of the stars? A partner who doesn't need bodyguarding? Kids with sharp teeth and no bedtime? I meant maybe just a life where you didn't have to stab people before breakfast. Zira smirked. Soft-heart engineer. Hard enough to survive this mess. They locked eyes for a moment. It wasn't flirtation, not yet, but there was a shift, a growing tension, respect beginning to replace annoyance. A loud boom shook the walls. The vendor yelled from outside. They found the safe house. Zira grabbed her pulse pistols. Rhett didn't wait for instructions. He yanked a metal panel off the wall and started working on the power box inside. Zira glanced over. You have 30 seconds. I need 15. The pounding outside grew louder. Voices shouted. Smoke drifted under the door. Rhett pulled 2 wires, crossed them, and jammed a power cell into the slot. Sparks flew. The emergency lights in the hallway blinked once, then went dark. You just blew the grid, Zira said. I bought us 30 seconds. She nodded. That's enough. They burst out the back, slipping into the chaos. With the lights out, the corridor filled with confusion, vendors shouting, criminals fleeing, bounty hunters yelling into comms. Zira fired at the ceiling, taking out a camera. Rhett ducked as she flipped over a table and dragged him into a maintenance lift. She slammed the door shut and hit the emergency descent. The lift groaned. Smoke and heat billowed from the upper levels. Zira leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Not bad, engineer. You're welcome, assassin. The lift stopped on a mid-tier service floor, 1 level below the casino floor. Quieter here, less crowded. The smell of coolant and ozone filled the air. Zira tapped her wristband, tracking signals off. We've bought time. Rhett looked at her. You know, for someone who's all business, you don't seem entirely heartless. I'm not. Then why act like it? She shrugged. Safer that way. Maybe, but right now I don't need someone cold. I need someone I can trust. You trust me. You haven't let me die yet. That's worth something. Zira stared at him, her expression unreadable. You talk too much. And you like it. She didn't deny it. They moved again. The floor ahead led toward a decommissioned observatory dome where few dared to go. Zira claimed it would be safe for now. As they walked, Rhett adjusted the cloak on his shoulders and pulled out the relic from his coat pocket. It's really a key. Zira nodded. Old tech predates most galactic empires. Some say it opens a vault containing tech that could rewrite star maps. Others say it's a trap to lure out fools. Which do you believe? I believe everyone's willing to kill for it. Then we're in for a hell of a ride. She looked up at him. Stay close. If you get lost, I won't come looking. He chuckled. Liar. She didn't answer, but her pace slowed just enough to let him walk beside her. The observatory dome hadn't been used in years. It sat like a forgotten eye above the casino's tech levels, cracked glass panels revealing a wide-angle view of the stars and the glow of nearby planets. Dust coated everything inside, dead consoles, collapsed chairs, and the remains of a collapsed projector rig filled the space, but it was quiet, and that was rare on Vega Vault. Zira locked the door behind them and dropped her pack onto a metal crate. Power's been cut for years, she said. We're safe from scanners here. Rhett wandered toward one of the cracked glass panels and looked out, hell of a view for a dead zone. Zira didn't respond. She was already moving, scanning the walls and checking for hidden surveillance. Rhett turned from the stars and watched her move, quick, focused, efficient, but something about her pace was slower now, like the adrenaline had finally dipped and the exhaustion was trying to claw its way in. He walked over to the central console, brushing off some dust, and tapped it. I could get one of these displays running again, just enough juice to scan local chatter. We don't need to risk transmitting. Not sending anything, just listening. Zira studied him for a moment, then gave a short nod. Rhett dropped to one knee and pulled a small toolkit from his belt. He worked fast, splicing wires and rewiring the capacitor. She didn't hover, didn't interrupt. She just sat, arms crossed, watching the door, silent but alert. He finished in minutes. Static burst to life on the cracked console. Rhett adjusted the frequency manually, and soon they could hear bursts of garbled transmissions. Target last seen exiting maintenance sublevel. Zira confirmed on sight. You stun, not kill if possible. Zira leaned in. That voice that's Creek's ex-guild works freelance now. Rhett raised an eyebrow. One of yours. Used to be. He'll follow protocol, but if someone pays more, he'll switch sides mid-job. Then let's hope no one's outbidding your client. Zira grunted. Doubt anyone even knows who hired me. They kept it off record. Rhett gave her a look. You don't know either, do you? She hesitated, then stood up and walked to the far window. Doesn't matter. Yeah, it kind of does. Someone went to a lot of trouble to keep me alive. I'd like to know why. Zira didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small sphere, cracked it open and tossed one half to him, a self-heating ration. Rhett took a bite, spicy, not bad, definitely better than standard fleet rations. You always work solo? He asked. Zira sat cross-legged on a crate and began cleaning her knives. Usually. Why? Don't like depending on people. They hesitate, they lie, they get in the way. He swallowed. You think I'm in the way? Zira paused. Not exactly. That your version of a compliment. She looked up. You're not useless. Rhett laughed. Coming from you, that's high praise. Zira returned to her work, but the corner of her mouth twitched upward for a second. Then it was gone. They finished eating in silence. Outside, the stars spun slowly, casting silver reflections across the broken floor. Rhett leaned back, arms behind his head, letting the moment settle. I used to think space was endless, he said. Now I just feel like I keep getting smaller the further I go. Zira looked at him, but didn't interrupt. He continued. Grew up thinking I'd build ships, be a fleet engineer, maybe settle down on one of the trade hubs. Now I'm dodging death every 30 minutes because I picked up a chip. Zira said nothing for a while. Then she said, At least you know who you are. Rhett glanced over. You do? She looked out the glass. I was born in a storm bunker on a mining moon. Parents dumped me at a mercenary station before I could walk, trained to shoot before I could read. I've lived on contracts, never really stopped to figure out anything else. That's a hard way to live. It's the only way I know. Rhett sat up. But you could walk away. Can't. Debt doesn't just vanish. Neither do old enemies. Everyone's got old enemies. Zira finally looked at him, eyes serious. Not like mine. He held her gaze. Still doesn't mean you don't get to choose who you are now. The silence between them stretched. You talk too much, she muttered again, but there was no venom in it this time. He smiled. You keep saying that, but you haven't left yet. She stood, brushing dust from her boots. We move at first light cycle. Vega Vault doesn't have a sun. Then, when the alarms go quiet, he nodded. What's next? There's a fixer in the lower levels who might know how to offload that relic or at least mask it, but he's got ties to old guilds. He might sell us out. And we're going anyway. Zira checked her sidearm. We don't have better options. Rhett stood stretching. Then I guess I'd better stick close. Zira stepped past him, her shoulder brushing his arm. For a moment neither moved. She didn't pull away. You're not bad in a fight, she said quietly. You either. She turned her head slightly, just enough for him to see her faint smile. Don't get cocky, engineer. Wouldn't dream of it. She stepped away, but the air between them felt warmer now. The tension had shifted, less suspicion, more curiosity. Outside, distant sirens echoed through the dome. Rhett looked out the glass one more time, then turned back toward the assassin watching the door. Zira, he said. What? I'm glad you're on my side. She didn't answer, but for the first time since they met, she didn't tell him to shut up. The walk to the fixer's compound took longer than expected. Zira led the way through a maze of rusted tunnels and sealed-off cargo corridors that twisted beneath the Vega Vault's lower districts. Every few turns, she stopped and scanned the area before moving again. Rhett stayed close, steps light, eyes alert. "You always this paranoid?" he asked. She didn't look back. "I'm still alive. Or I..." Point taken. They reached a freight elevator tucked behind a scrap pile. Zira keyed in a code, then slammed her palm against the sensor. The doors creaked open with a groan of worn hydraulics. Rhett followed her in, resisting the urge to whistle. "Let me guess, Fixer's not exactly government certified." Zira gave him a dry look. "He once sold black market oxygen tanks that vented halfway through use. If he offers you anything, say no." Noted. The elevator groaned downward into the underbelly of the station. Dim lights flickered. The air grew stale and thick with the scent of oil and old coolant. When the doors opened, they were met with a hallway that looked abandoned, until a turret dropped from the ceiling and locked onto Zira's head. She didn't flinch. "Zira 6-1, a distorted voice called from a speaker above. "Back from the dead. Not yet, Fricks." The turret retracted. Rhett followed her into a cramped chamber filled with humming machines, cables, and stacked crates. A thin, four-armed alien with translucent skin hunched over a desk covered in blinking monitors. Fricks, his top left arm typed. His bottom right arm stirred a cup of something steaming. "Didn't think I'd see you again," Fricks muttered, not looking up. "And bringing a human, that's new. He needs a scramble on this." She tossed the artifact onto his desk. Fricks blinked all four eyes and finally turned. His gaze shifted from the relic to Rhett. "You the idiot who picked this up." Rhett shrugged. "I want it in a card game." Fricks snorted. "You want an interstellar keystone in a casino rig to drain your credits." "Sure." Zira stepped forward. "Can you mask it or not?" Fricks picked it up carefully, turning it over in two of his hands. "It's real and ancient, pre-Union tech, layers of encryption I haven't seen in decades." Rhett stepped closer. "Can it be destroyed?" "Destroyed?" "No, but I can hide it. Cloak the signal for a few cycles, make it look like it vanished." Zira nodded. "Do it." Fricks hesitated. "Payment." Zira dropped a cred stick on the table. Fricks frowned. "This isn't enough, not for something like this." Before Zira could answer, the door slid open behind them. Rhett turned fast. A tall figure stepped through, flanked by two guards. She wore a sleek coat and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Karna." Rhett stiffened. "You've got to be kidding me." Zira didn't move, but her eyes narrowed. "You know her. She's my ex." Karna gave a mock bow and former business partner. "Let's not forget that." Zira turned to Fricks. "You told her we were coming." Fricks raised his hands. "She paid double." Karna walked over to the artifact, picked it up like she already owned it. "I came to make sure my investment stayed breathing. Zira was hired on my behalf." Rhett stared. "You hired her. I heard bounty chatter about you," Karna said. "Figured you'd get yourself killed. Thought I'd send the best to keep you breathing until I got here." Zira didn't look at Rhett. She was watching the guards behind Karna. "You sent her to protect me like I'm some kind of asset," Rhett said, voice sharp. "You are," Karna replied. "That key you picked up, it links to a vault only humans can open. Genetic lock. That's why they want you alive." Rhett took a step back. "So I'm not just holding the key. I am the key." Zira didn't speak. She just watched him, waiting for him to process. Karna smiled. "Come with me, Rhett. I've got a ship ready. We can trade the vault's contents, split the credits, and disappear before war breaks out." Rhett turned to Zira. "You knew. I figured it out 2 nights ago. Didn't change the job. But you didn't tell me. I didn't think you could handle it yet." Rhett's jaw tightened. "You could have just said something." Karna stepped between them. "You don't need her anymore. Come with me." He didn't move. For a moment, no one breathed. Then Rhett looked at Zira. "You're not just doing this for credits, are you?" Zira met his gaze. "I was." Karna laughed. "She doesn't care about you. She's a weapon in a small package." Zira's voice was quiet. "I care now." Karna rolled her eyes. "Emotions get you killed." "Sometimes," Rhett said, "but they're also why people fight to live." He turned fully towards Zira. "I'm not going with her." Karna stepped forward. "Don't be stupid." Rhett pulled a small device from his belt, the one he'd rigged in the observatory. He pressed a button. A surge of static screamed through the room as every console shorted out. Fricks yelped, the lights flickered and dimmed. The guards raised their weapons, but Zira was already moving. In 2 blinks, she vaulted the table, disarmed one guard, and dropped him with a shot to the chest. The second barely raised his blaster before she buried a knife in his leg. He dropped screaming. Karna backed away, reaching for her communicator. Rhett kicked it from her hand. The lights died completely. Moments later, silence. When emergency backup kicked in, Karna was on the floor, groaning. Her guards were out cold. Zira stepped over them. Rhett looked at her. "You ready to stop running?" Zira nodded. "Are you ready to start?" They left Frick's place before the alarms could summon backup. No one spoke for a long while. The corridors blurred past, their footsteps the only sound. Finally, Zira broke the silence. "You didn't have to choose me." Rhett looked over. "Yeah, I did." And he didn't regret it, not one bit. They ducked into a disused tram tunnel after leaving Frick's compound, slipping behind a rusted panel and down a ladder that hadn't seen maintenance in years. The space smelled like metal and stale oil, but it was dark and quiet, which was all Zira cared about right now. She didn't speak until she was sure no one had followed them. "Stay quiet," she whispered, scanning the tunnel with her tracker. "Frick's place is compromised. We're off the map now." Rhett dropped down beside her, brushing off dust from his jacket. "Good. I was tired of playing by someone else's script." Zira didn't respond right away. She moved ahead, crouching low, small frame blending into the shadows. Rhett followed close. A low rumble echoed from deep within the station's layers, distant machinery or another firefight. It didn't matter. They reached an old control room halfway down the tunnel. Broken monitors lined the walls, and half the ceiling had collapsed, but there was a spot behind the main console where they could sit and catch their breath. Zira collapsed onto a crate. Rhett leaned against a wall and slid down until he was sitting on the floor. After a while, he broke the silence. "You meant it back there." She didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Yeah. You care." Zira nodded slowly. Didn't plan to, but it happened anyway. Rhett stared at the cracked floor in front of him. "I wasn't expecting it either." She glanced over, one eyebrow raised. "You expected me to be a cold-blooded killer without feelings. I expected not to survive the week. Everything else has been a bonus." That made her chuckle quiet but real. Rhett turned toward her. "Why'd you take the job?" he asked. "At first, the debt. My last contract went bad. I needed a quick payoff. And when did it change?" Zira looked at him for a long moment. "When I saw how you ran from those first hunters, most people panic." "You adapted. You didn't freeze. I've seen soldiers do worse under pressure." Rhett shrugged. "I fix things. Sometimes that means thinking fast." "You earned my respect," she said. "I didn't expect to like you." He smiled. "Well, you're not exactly easy to like either. Good keeps the wrong people away." Their eyes met. There was something unspoken hanging in the air, not quite ready to drop but too loud to ignore. "Back there with Karna," Rhett said. "You could have taken her offer, left me." "I thought about it," Zira admitted, "but I didn't want to. That surprises me. Surprises me too." The moment stretched, quieter than the tunnels themselves. Zira finally looked away. "You're not just the key to that vault," she said. "You're a target for half the syndicates in this sector. Anyone who holds you controls what's inside." "So what's inside?" Rhett asked. "Have you heard anything real?" "Rumors, weapons, tech, data. One theory says it's coordinates to a pre-Union seed vault, enough to restart civilization after a war, and you don't care what's in it. I care more about making sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. You sound like someone with principles." Zira rolled her eyes. "Don't ruin it." Rhett grinned too late. She stood and stretched. "We need to move. There's a shuttle hub 2 levels down. If we can reach it, we can hit the fringe rings and disappear." And after that, Zira hesitated. "I don't know." "You ever think about stopping?" Rhett asked. "Just stopping everything." Zira looked at him. "I've never had anything to stop for." "You do now." She studied him, arms crossed. He didn't flinch under her stare. "You're serious?" "I wouldn't be here if I was." Zira's expression softened just enough for him to notice. "You're not like the others," she said. "Most humans I've met wanted something. Power, money, revenge. I just wanted to fix satellites and maybe not die." He took a step toward her. "Zira, you don't have to go back to being alone after this." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached up and gently pulled the relic from his coat pocket. She turned it over in her hands, the smooth surface catching the dim light from the console. "This thing's a curse," she said quietly. "Maybe," Rhett replied, "but we're the ones holding it. We decide what it means." She nodded, then slipped the relic back into his coat. Her fingers brushed against his chest. She didn't pull away. He looked down at her, suddenly aware of how close they were. For the first time, she didn't look like a deadly weapon in a small package. She looked tired, real. Zira looked up at him, eyes unreadable. "You think I'm worth the risk?" "I already took it." Their eyes locked. Then she leaned in. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, uncertain, but real. Her lips brushed his, and for a moment neither of them moved. When she stepped back, her expression didn't change much, but her ears had flushed a darker shade of green. "Don't get used to that," she muttered. Rhett smiled. No promises. She turned away quickly and pulled a small handheld scanner from her belt. "Let's go before I regret that." Rhett chuckled and followed. He didn't push his luck, but his chest felt lighter. The danger was still real, the odds still bad, but the air between them had shifted. They moved fast, climbing down service ladders and crawling through dusty vents. Zira stopped just short of the shuttle hub entrance. Through a grated panel, they could see a security checkpoint. 2 guards, not syndicate, but local security, better trained, probably bought off. Zira lowered her scanner. "They're clean but not friendly. We'll need a distraction." "I can cause a power surge," Rhett offered. "Might fry the lights for 30 seconds. "Make it 20. He pulled out his toolkit again and went to work. She watched him in silence, still and unreadable. The surge worked perfectly. Lights blew, alarms chirped, and the guards scrambled. Zira moved like smoke, slipping past them, dragging Rhett behind her. They made it onto the shuttle platform just as the power flickered back on. Zira pulled him behind a crate and pointed at a small courier vessel across the deck. "That's our ride," she said. Rhett looked at her. "You ever flown one of those?" She smirked. "No." He grinned. "Perfect." They ran for the ship. Behind them guards shouted. Shots rang out. But Zira never missed a step, and Rhett never let go of her hand. The stolen courier shuttle didn't have much in the way of comfort. The cockpit was cramped, and the passenger space smelled like burned plastic and old coffee, but the engine ran, and the shields held, and that was all Zira needed. She sat in the pilot's seat with her feet barely reaching the rudder control, adjusting the nav settings while Rhett patched a coolant leak with duct tape and a spare ration pack. "This is barely space-worthy," he said, watching the seal hiss and settle. "I give it 2 hours before the heat exchangers melt." Zira tapped a few controls. "We won't need 2 hours. There's a dead zone 3 sectors out. No scans, no comms, no traffic." "Sounds cozy." "It's where we'll find the vault." Rhett blinked. "You know where it is." Zira nodded without looking at him. Karna had coordinates in her gear. I copied them before we left. "You always think that far ahead." She finally turned. "I don't like surprises." Rhett strapped into the co-pilot seat. "What happens if the vault is real, if it's as big as everyone says? Then we make sure it doesn't end up in the wrong hands." "And what if we're the wrong hands?" Zira gave him a sharp look. "Are we?" "I don't think so," he said. "But I've never had this much power sitting in my coat pocket before." She didn't argue. Instead, she turned back to the controls and initiated the jump sequence. The ship rumbled, the stars outside stretched, and in a blink, they were gone. Silence filled the cockpit after the jump. Rhett leaned back and stared at the stars. "You've changed," he said. Zira didn't look over. "How so?" "You talk more," she snorted. "I talk when there's something worth saying. And me. You're growing on me." He smiled. "You're not so bad yourself." They shared a glance, one of those quiet moments that said more than either of them wanted to admit. Then the console beeped. Zira's fingers moved fast. "We're here." Outside the window was nothing. Blackness. A void. But the scanner flickered, picking up something buried in the darkness. An artificial structure cloaked in silent, floating just beyond the asteroid belt. "There," Zira said. "That's the vault." They moved closer. The vault didn't look like much. A jagged chunk of metal fused with asteroid debris, floating aimlessly. But as the shuttle neared, the relic in Rhett's coat began to glow faintly. He pulled it out. The glow intensified. Zira watched the scanner, signals activating. The vault is responding. "Should I be nervous?" "Yes." The ship aligned with a docking port that extended from the side of the vault like a forgotten limb. Zira dropped them into position, then turned off the main systems. "Manual entry only. We don't want to trigger an auto-defense." They suited up and stepped through the airlock. The docking corridor creaked under their boots. The air inside was breathable, barely. The walls were covered in markings neither of them recognized. Rhett ran a hand along one. "Pre-Union script. This place is ancient." Zira led the way. "Let's hope it still works." At the end of the corridor was a door. No controls, no scanner, just a circular panel at chest height. Rhett approached it with the relic in hand. As soon as he touched it to the panel, the door hissed and split open. Inside the vault was massive. Rows of consoles, databanks, tech unlike anything Rhett had ever seen. The walls pulsed with faint energy. The room itself was shaped like a sphere, hollowed out with a platform in the center. Lights flickered on as they stepped inside. "This isn't just a storage unit," Rhett said. "It's a database, maybe even a command center." Zira approached one of the consoles. "Look at this." Holograms burst to life. Maps, star charts, battle records, even recordings of species Rhett had never seen. And buried in the center of it all, locked in a glowing stasis field, was a small crystal cube. Rhett walked toward it slowly. The relic in his hand vibrated. "It wants me to activate it." Zira stepped up beside him. "Then do it." He touched the relic to the field. Light exploded around them and the cube dropped into his palm. A voice echoed in the chamber, deep and old. Genetic match confirmed. "Welcome, Keybearer. The legacy is yours." Rhett and Zira looked at each other. The vault shifted. More panels opened, revealing energy cores, weapon schematics, agricultural blueprints, technology that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Zira turned slowly, eyes wide. "This is real. All of it." Rhett swallowed hard. "We need to destroy it." "No." "What?" She looked at him. "We don't destroy it. We hide it." "You said—" "I said we can't let it fall into the wrong hands. That includes vaporizing it and letting someone else pick through the ruins later." Rhett hesitated. "So, what do we do?" "We lock it again, bury it, leave no trace." He looked down at the cube in his hand. The weight of it felt heavier than anything he'd ever held. Then he looked at Zira. "You sure?" "I trust you," she said. He nodded. "Then let's do it." They spent the next hour resetting the vault systems. Zira found the internal cloaking protocols, and Rhett configured the vault to change its alignment every 8 hours, shifting its orbit through the asteroid belt. It would take centuries for anyone to find it again, if they even knew where to look. Before they left, Zira placed the cube back in its cradle. The stasis field returned, hiding it from sight. As they returned to the shuttle, Rhett let out a long breath. "Think anyone will believe we left it untouched?" Zira shrugged. "Doesn't matter. We'll know." Back on the ship, Rhett dropped into the pilot's seat and stared at the controls. Zira sat across from him. "No more vault," he said. "No more bounty. What now?" Zira smiled faintly. "We disappear together." He turned toward her. "You sure you want that?" "I'm sure I don't want to keep running alone." Rhett leaned forward, took her hand. "Then let's go somewhere quiet. Build something for once." Zira nodded. "I like the sound of that." Outside, the stars waited. For the first time, neither of them was running. They were halfway to the outer rim station of Karen's Drift when the ship's proximity alarm began to scream. Zira was on her feet instantly. She didn't need the readout to guess what was coming. A fast-moving craft on intercept course, too fast for local patrols, too aggressive to be random. Rhett didn't hesitate either. He slammed his hands on the controls and started a hard turn, trying to throw off the lock. "They followed us," he said. Zira pulled herself into the co-pilot's seat and scanned the panel. "No, they waited. Someone knew we'd go to the vault. They were watching from a distance. Then they'll be expecting us to run." "Good," Zira said. "Let's not disappoint them." The incoming ship fired a warning shot that streaked past the shuttle's starboard side. A clean miss, but too close for comfort. Rhett gritted his teeth. "Engines can't outrun that thing, not in this heap." Zira was already pulling open the weapons panel. "Then we don't outrun. We distract and land." She opened a channel and locked onto the nearest asteroid field. It wasn't much, mostly frozen debris and ice shards, but it was enough. "You ever flown blind?" she asked. "Define blind." Zira tapped a command, and the shuttle's lights died. Rhett blinked as the cabin plunged into near darkness, lit only by the emergency indicators. "They'll lose visual lock," she explained, "but only for about 90 seconds. Then let's make them count." He dropped the ship into a dive and raced toward the asteroid field. The enemy ship followed, slower but more stable. It had better thrusters, better tracking, but it didn't have Zira. She took control of the turret. "Get me in range, working on it." The asteroid spun around them, chunks of ice and rocks slamming into the hull as Rhett dipped and weaved. Zira's eyes narrowed. She waited for the moment, just a few more seconds. "Now!" He twisted hard left. Zira fired. The first shot missed. The second clipped the enemy's wing. The third hit home, slamming into their shield matrix and sparking a burst of blue static. Not enough to destroy it, but enough to destabilize their aim. "We've got to land," Zira said. "Now." "There's no planet." "There's a moon," she replied. "Right below us." Rhett cursed it under his breath and punched in the descent. The shuttle groaned from the stress. He didn't care. They were going down. The moon was barren, flat, nothing but ice plains and fractured ground. The shuttle slammed into the surface, skidding across the crust, sparks flying. Rhett barely managed to stop them before they hit a ridge. Alarms wailed. Zira didn't wait. She was out of her harness and moving to the rear hatch before the dust settled. "They'll land nearby. We've got maybe 5 minutes." Rhett followed her into the freezing wind. "You have a plan." She pointed toward a cave entrance about 200 meters away. "We make them follow us, then we take them out." Rhett didn't argue. They reached the cave just as the enemy ship landed behind them. Figures emerged, 4 of them, armored and armed. Not guild, not pirates, something worse. Zira saw the emblem on their shoulder plates. She stopped cold. "Black Nova," she said. Rhett had heard of them. Shadow contractors, the kind of mercs who took payment in secrets and blood. If they were here, someone with real power had pulled strings. "You've dealt with them before?" he asked. "I fought with them long time ago. Any chance they'll recognize you?" "Every chance." Inside the cave, they crouched behind a frozen ridge. Zira handed Rhett a pistol. He looked at it, then her. "You trust me with this. You're not useless. Just don't shoot me." The mercenaries followed fast, too fast. One of them had a tracker. Zira cursed it under her breath. They were triangulating their position. "We make a stand here," she said. Rhett nodded. "I'm with you." They waited. The wind howled outside. Then the first of the Black Nova stepped through. Zira didn't hesitate. She took the shot. The man dropped. The others scattered, returning fire. Rhett stayed low, using the pistol the way she'd shown him. One shot grazed a merc's arm. Another slammed into a frozen pillar. Zira moved like a shadow, small, fast, deadly. She took out the second and third before they could react. The last merc pinned them with suppressive fire. Zira ducked behind a rock, teeth clenched. "Out," she said. Rhett tossed her an energy cell. She caught it, slammed it into place, and popped up to fire. The last merc went down, silent. Zira stood there, breathing hard. Rhett walked up beside her. "You okay?" "I'm fine." "You sure?" She turned to him, eyes intense. "They were sent to kill you, not capture. Someone getting desperate." "Then the vault isn't the only secret they're trying to bury." Zira nodded. "We just became a liability." They made it back to the shuttle, patched the damage, and reinitiated flight. Zira sat in silence for most of the climb. Rhett finally said, "You knew one of them, didn't you?" She nodded. "He trained me." "You didn't hesitate. I had to choose him or you." Rhett looked over. "And you chose me." Zira didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, "Yeah, I did." He reached over and took her hand. "You keep doing that," he said, "choosing me. You keep making it hard, not to." Outside, the stars turned again, but inside the shuttle something had changed. No more doubts, no more running, just two people choosing each other, even when the galaxy didn't want them to. The message came through while Rhett was rerouting the damaged coolant lines. A faint pulse tucked behind a scrambled channel, barely strong enough to register. Zira picked it up instantly. She was sitting in the cockpit, one boot resting on the dash, running diagnostics on the shields. She narrowed her eyes at the flickering readout. Encrypted transmission, high-tier guild signature. Rhett looked up from the floor. "That's not good." "No, it's worse than not good." She patched it through a filter, rerouting it across a dozen false nodes. After 30 seconds, the message played. A hologram crackled to life in the cockpit, showing a tall woman in a red cloak standing before a sea of armored troops. Zira stiffened. Rhett climbed into the cockpit and leaned over. "You know her." "She used to run my old guild. Name's Varix." The woman in the hologram spoke in calm, even tones. "To the bearer of the vault key, there's no point hiding. You've interfered with matters beyond your understanding. This is your final warning. Surrender the artifact at the Velen Bridge. Do so, and your assassin walks free. Refuse, and we burn every system you've ever landed in." The hologram flickered out. Rhett was quiet for a moment, then he looked at Zira. "She's bluffing." "No," Zira said. "She means every word." "We don't even have the artifact anymore." "They don't know that. They think you still have the cube." Rhett frowned. "And now they're threatening you to get to me." Zira stood, packing a short path in the cramped space. "She's trying to break you. Varix doesn't care about death. She cares about leverage." "Well, she's got the wrong guy," Rhett said. Zira turned. "You sure about that?" He crossed his arms. "You're not a bargaining chip, and I'm not surrendering." She stared at him for a moment, eyes unreadable. "You'll get yourself killed." "Then let's make sure I take them with me." Zira exhaled slowly, then nodded. Velen Bridge is a decommissioned orbital station, half collapsed, no comms, perfect spot for an ambush. "Then we don't give them an ambush," Rhett said. "We give them something worse." Zira raised an eyebrow. "We fake the artifact again," he explained. "Bait them into exposing their team. We shut them down before they ever touch us." Zira hesitated. "That'll paint a permanent target on your back," he smirked. "I already have one." They spent the next hour prepping. Zira armed herself with every weapon the ship had. Rhett built a decoy from a gutted comm beacon and a bit of leftover tech from the vault's activation shell. It wouldn't pass a deep scan, but in the chaos of a firefight, it wouldn't need to. They jumped into Velen's orbit under a false transponder. From above, the bridge looked like a broken ring of rust and darkness. Half the platform was torn open to space. The other half flickered with flickers of fatting power. Zira guided the shuttle to the shattered hangar bay. No one fired, not yet. "Too quiet," Rhett muttered. "Always is," Zira said. They stepped out slowly, Rhett carrying the decoy wrapped in thermal mesh. Zira moved beside him, weapons drawn, eyes scanning every shadow. The airlock hissed open ahead of them. From the smoke stepped Vorax. She hadn't changed. Tall, cold, every move precise. Her armor was ceremonial, more for intimidation than protection. She had 10 men with her, real soldiers. Zira stopped walking Vorax. Zira still chasing hopeless causes. Rhett stepped forward. "I'm the one you want." Vorax smiled thinly. "You were never the goal, just the bait." Rhett unwrapped the decoy. "Here it is, the cube." Vorax raised a hand, her men tensed. Zira watched her, something off. Then she saw it. The insignia's not mercenary Mark's government elite. Vorax wasn't freelancing. "She's working for the Alliance," Zira said. Vorax smiled wider. "Of course I am. You think we'd let tech like that drift through the galaxy without oversight?" Rhett held up the cube. "Then why not take it yourselves?" "We can't," Vorax said. "The Vault rejected our agents. Only you have access. You're a genetic key tied to a human line we've been tracking for decades." Zira stepped in front of Rhett. "You're not getting him." "I wasn't asking." The moment cracked. A burst of gunfire erupted from the catwalks above. Zira grabbed Rhett and Dove behind a crate as sparks and debris exploded around them. "They had snipers waiting," she said. "I noticed." Zira threw a grenade upward, clearing one of the catwalks. Rhett rolled aside, firing at 2 approaching soldiers with his pistol. His aim was better now, cleaner. He dropped one and wounded the other. Vorax advanced through the chaos. "Give me the key, Zira, and I'll let you live." Zira popped up and returned fire, driving her back. "No deal," she said. Grenades boomed. Smoke filled the hangar. One of Vorax's men closed in on Rhett, but Zira reached him first, sliding under his legs and firing around into his chest. The man collapsed. They regrouped behind a support pillar. "We're not getting out the way we came in," Rhett said. Zira checked her last mag. "Then we make a hole." She ran for the fuel line, snaking along the far wall, and fired twice. Liquid hissed out. Rhett now, he fired a charge into the fluid trail. The explosion tore through the wall, a chain reaction rocking the entire platform. Zira grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the secondary shuttle port exposed by the blast. They stumbled into the old docking bay, half buried in debris. Zira kicked open the emergency pod hatch inside. They dropped in, sealed it, and launched just as the rest of the hangar collapsed behind them. The pod rocketed away from the station, rattling violently, but intact. In the silence that followed, Rhett leaned back, catching his breath. That went well. Zira looked over, helmet off, hair loose, face smudged with soot. "You didn't run. I had someone to protect." She smiled. So did I. Their hands found each other without words. Whatever happened next, they'd face it together, and that was enough. The escape pod touched down in the shadow of an abandoned mining station on the edge of a dead world. The surface was a frozen crust, fractured and flat, with scattered remnants of towers and dig rigs half swallowed by snow. Rhett pried open the hatch while Zira scanned the horizon through the cracked viewport. "Nothing on scanners," she said. "No ships, no signals. We bought ourselves a little time." Rhett stepped out, breathing in the cold air through his mask. "You sure this place is off the grid?" Used to be a Union mining outpost before the collapse, long since stripped for parts, only ghosts left now. They moved quickly, cutting across the hard ground to reach a narrow crevice between 2 collapsed towers. Inside, the walls shielded them from any aerial scans. Rhett dropped the emergency pack and pulled out the heating unit, while Zira stood watch at the entrance, pulse rifle in hand. "Think they'll chase us here?" he asked. Zira didn't look back. "They'll regroup first. Vorex won't quit, but she needs a reason to keep spending resources. She lost good men back there, that buys us time." Rhett activated the heater and sat on the floor, leaning against the wall. "Feels like the whole galaxy's gunning for us." Zira stepped inside and shut the panel over the entrance, sealing them in with a hiss. "They are." Rhett glanced at her. "You ever get tired of being hunted?" She knelt beside him, setting her rifle down. "You get used to it. Eventually, the chase becomes the normal part. Quiet like this. That's what feels strange." "You think we can stay quiet?" he asked. "Disappear?" Zira didn't answer right away. She removed her gloves and flexed her fingers, watching the faint glow of the heater reflect off the metal walls. "I used to think disappearing was freedom," she said. "No name, no trace, just vanish. But now I think disappearing is just another way of being alone." Rhett looked at her eyes steady, then "Don't disappear. Not alone anyway." She met his gaze. For a long moment, neither of them said a word. The cold air between them warmed by something unspoken. Zira finally spoke. "I meant what I said back on Velen. You weren't a job anymore. You're more than that." Rhett leaned toward her. "So are you." He reached out, gently brushing his fingers against hers. She didn't pull away. Her hand curled around his, small and warm, her touch firm despite the shake in her breath. "I never had anyone stay," she said. "I'm not going anywhere." The wind howled outside. Inside, the silence grew heavier, but in a different way. Zira's eyes softened, the usual sharp edge fatting just enough to let something else through. "I don't know what happens next," she said. "Neither do I," Rhett replied, "but I know I want you with me." Zira nodded. "Then let's make a new plan." Rhett raised an eyebrow. "Please tell me this one doesn't end with us getting shot at." "Depends how good you are with a calm scrambler." They spent the next hour taking the emergency pod apart. Zira rigged the transponder with a decoy signal to fake their trail back toward the nearest trade system, while Rhett patched a message into a neutral relay network. Not a cry for help, just a ping to a contact he knew on the outer belt, someone who owed him a favor. While the message ran, Zira worked quietly beside him, setting the charge pattern for the pod's core. "You're going to blow it," he asked. "Need to make it look like we died in the crash." Convincing. "Gotta be. Vorex doesn't let people slip twice." The message finished transmitting. Rhett stood and stretched. "Your contact's still good. He runs a courier outpost on Talvin 3. Off-grid, won't ask questions." Zira gave the charge one final check, then stood too. "We leave in an hour, long enough for the fake signal to spread." Rhett stepped closer, and after that she hesitated, then looked up at him. "I want to stop running. Maybe find something quiet just for a while." Yeah. He reached out, touched her cheek with me. "With you." Zira leaned in this time. No hesitation. Their kiss was quiet, steady, filled with the weight of everything left unsaid. Not desperation, not a stolen moment before a battle, just two people choosing each other finally. When they pulled apart, her forehead rested against his chest. "We'll need new names," she said. Already thought of a few. And fake IDs, clean slates. "I've got a guy." Zira laughed just once. It was short, surprised, and real. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." They loaded their packs and slipped away from the crevice before the detonation. Behind them, the emergency pod exploded, a fireball rising into the sky and sending up a signal spike that would echo across 3 systems. Anyone watching would see 2 people die on that moon. No bodies, no trail, just vapor and silence. They moved toward the edge of the ridge, where the old mining skiff Rhett had signaled was waiting. The pilot didn't ask questions, just nodded and powered up the thrusters. As the shuttle lifted off, Zira sat beside Rhett and stared out the window. The burning wreckage grew smaller, then vanished behind the curve of the world. She took his hand again. "So now what?" he asked. "Now," Zira said, "we decide what kind of life we want." The shuttle jumped into light speed and the stars turned once more. This time they weren't running. They were choosing, together. The Talvin 3 outpost was nothing more than a weather-beaten dock bolted to the side of a jagged cliff. Beneath it, white fog rolled over canyons. The air was cold but breathable, and the locals, few of them human, kept to themselves. Nobody asked names, and nobody cared where you'd come from as long as you didn't bring heat. Which made it perfect. Rhett stepped off the ramp first, carrying their gear while Zira scanned the area. No signs of pursuit, no syndicate tags, no military patrols, just broken metal railings, thin pathways, and the faint sound of machines struggling to breathe in the cold. "This place is uglier than I expected," Rhett said. Zira shrugged beside him. "Ugly's safe." They walked in silence toward a narrow building built into the rock. The windows were scratched and the sign flickered in an unknown script. Rhett opened the door and they stepped into a room that looked part bar, part supply depot, part motel. Behind the counter, a broad-shouldered alien with one eye glanced up. Zira approached first. "We need a room, long-term, no records." The alien snorted. "You're not the first to ask. You stay in quiet." As ghosts, he slid a keycard across the counter without another word. They found their room at the end of a narrow hall. It wasn't much, one bed, a desk, and a door that actually locked. The lights flickered, the water worked, the heater coughed to life with a stubborn groan. Zira dropped her bag and looked around. Could be worse. Rhett tossed his jacket over the chair and sat on the edge of the bed. Could be a lot worse. She turned to him, arms crossed. "This it? We hiding out forever?" "No," he said. "We're starting something." Zira didn't say anything at first. She just looked at him, then walked over and sat beside him. "You think you're really done with the galaxy?" He looked her in the eyes. "I think I'm done letting it choose for me." Outside, a transport shuttle lifted into the pale sky, cutting a faint silhouette through the fog. Inside, it was quiet except for the hum of the heater and their breathing. Zira leaned back on her palms. "You ever miss the noise, the chase?" "I miss the purpose sometimes, but not the danger." "You could have left me behind," she said. "After the vault, after Velen, could have disappeared on your own." "I didn't want to." She glanced over. "Why not?" "Because you're not just a part of the mess anymore. You're part of what I want next." Zira looked at the floor for a moment, then back at him. "I still don't know how to be anything other than what I was," she said. "Then don't be anything other than you," Rhett said. "You protect people. You fight when it matters. You're more than what they made you." He stood, walked to the window, and stared at the fog outside. "You ever think about doing something simple?" he asked, opening a shop, building things. Zira raised an eyebrow. "You want to open a hardware store?" "Maybe," he said, smiling. "Or a repair dock, help pilots keep their ships in the sky." She stood beside him now. "You'd go from vaults and bounty hunters to fixing brakes." "I'd go from surviving to living." Zira leaned her head against his shoulder. "I might not be great at normal." "We'll figure it out together." They watched the fog roll for a while. The cold seeped through the window frame, but inside the room felt warm enough. Safe. The next morning, Rhett woke up before the sun crested the ridge. He pulled on a coat and stepped out onto the balcony that overlooked the canyon. The wind was cold and sharp, but it felt clean. Zira joined him a minute later, carrying 2 cups of synth coffee. She handed him one without a word. "What now?" she asked after a while. Rhett took a sip, then nodded toward the garage 2 buildings down. "I asked the mechanic if he needed help," said his plasma cutters keep overheating. "You offering to fix them?" "Not offering," he said. "Told him I start today." Zira gave him a long look. "You're serious about this quiet life." "I'm serious about having one." "And me." He turned to her. "You're the reason I'm not walking away from it." Zira smiled. Not the smirk she used when mocking him, not the calculated tilt she wore in a fight, just a real smile. Then I guess I'll stick around. She reached into her coat and pulled out the relic the decoy Rhett had built. She tossed it into the canyon without ceremony. Rhett raised an eyebrow. "Just in case anyone's still looking," she said. The wind carried it down into the mist below. Rhett nodded. "Feels final." "It is." They went back inside, shut the door, and left the galaxy out there. Over the next few months, they built something small and steady. Rhett fixed ships. Zira trained pilots in self-defense when she wasn't running drills in the canyon. No one knew who they were. No one asked. They went from sleeping with one eye open to sleeping without a weapon under the pillow. One night, as the sky turned violet and the moons rose over the ridge, Rhett cooked something passable over a heat coil while Zira sat on the floor cleaning her gear. "You know," Rhett said, "we've been here 6 months." Zira looked up. "You counting days now?" "Just thinking." "About what?" He smiled, about how lucky I was to have a 3-foot-tall alien assassin show up when she did. She smirked. "You're lucky I didn't kill you. You kissed me instead." Momentary lapse in judgment. "I hope it lasts forever." She put her gear down, crossed the room, and kissed him again. This one wasn't brief or uncertain. It was quiet and full, the kind that came after everything else had been stripped away and something better remained. Rhett pulled her closer. "So," she whispered, "still think about opening that repair dock?" He grinned. "I already did. You just keep scaring off the customers. Only the ones who look at you too long. I'll take that as a compliment." Zira rested her head against his chest. "You were worth the job, Rhett. Worth all of it." He held her tighter. "And you were the best thing I never saw coming. Outside, the moons climbed higher. Inside, there were no alarms, no threats, no running. Just 2 people, finally free from the chase. And together, that was enough."